Have you ever felt like you were in the zone? I have. I love it. We're going to talk about something called flow state. What it is, how to get into it, how you can maximize it. Let's go.
Welcome to the Warrior Mindset Podcast. We're your guide as you make your way through life, getting better 1% every day. We believe that life is lived and true victory won through adversity. Nothing easy is ever worth it. We believe in the warrior ethos and support those that choose to walk that path.
All right, man.
Heyo.
Well, we tried recording this one and then I screwed it up and we're doing it again.
So if it sucks this time, it's Gene's
Yeah.
fault. 100% his fault.
Yeah, I'll take the blame.
Hopefully it doesn't suck though.
Talking about being in flow state, in the zone. You heard that before. Are you in the zone?
Get in the zone.
I'm in the zone.
Auto
Auto
zone.
God.
Man, we are jingle heavy today. This is what happens when you're like a hybrid digital, traditional communications marketing web agent.
Or been up since 4 a.m. drinking coffee.
I mean, there's that.
So
Welcome back,
unlocking the power of flow state, what it is and how it is.
What it is. Yo, you're going to be entertained, but I don't know if you're going to get any value out of this thing, educationally speaking.
What does it mean to you?
Flow state. I love flow state. It feels like that thing where it's like, well, you can calculate the trajectory of a orbital insertion to Mars.
Yeah.
It feels like it's magic, but it's actually just a bunch of math.
Yeah.
Flow state for me though feels like actual magic.
Yeah, it feels like it.
The
when you get things done.
Yeah, getting things done, but then like doing it in a way where it's like it's all clicking. It's not like I have to get this done so I can ship this invoice. It's like I don't know.
Yeah.
For me, flow state is working on stuff that I enjoy, and doing it well, and doing it in a way where I am fully immersed in it.
That's cool.
And I don't think, like, can you get in flow state with your taxes? Maybe
You can.
maybe, but I will never do that because I do it because I have to and not because I want to. And that's
Right.
But I mean, even with that, so yeah, I mean, for me, it's, it's that feeling of getting lost in your work. And typically for me, it is doing something creative or crafty. Right.
Yeah.
So it's woodworking, or it is,
Right.
Getting really deep into like a creative concept for a new client brand, or sometimes for me, it's like nerding out with future focused stuff, like strategy stuff. I can get in flow state with strategy. It's hardly ever when it's formulaic for me.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
like
totally.
I would have trouble getting in flow state where I'm like, I have to finish this thing, and the next thing I do is this process.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
Because I think it's like you have to. For me, it's that when I get in flow state, I guess I feel like I've given myself permission to just wander for a while.
Yeah.
At least in the creative respects.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, what about you?
Well, first of all, I think you can get in flow state on your taxes. I've done that before. There's like external forces making you focus. Like if I don't get this done, I have to pay more money. So I'm definitely going to focus.
100%.
Sort of like a deadline. Sometimes a deadline gets you in flow state, because you're like, I got this shit done by Friday and it's Wednesday. I better get this done, This definition, I guess I found, I like the statement. Flow state is marked by a perfect balance of challenge and skill, leading to a sense of timelessness and effortless action. Challenge and skill. I think those two things, like challenge, maybe it's a deadline. Maybe it's learning something new. Maybe it's just being creative or whatever. And then your skill, like something you're good at.
So you're really good at taxes?
No. But okay. I'm really good at being worried about finishing on time.
So what does that mean for you then? Because I like that. I mean, it's this idea of, you're doing work that you are qualified to do,
Mm-hmm.
like that you are skilled at your craft, and then you are doing it in ways that is pushing the envelope a little
Mm-hmm.
bit. Why does that create this nirvana of flow state? Well, what are those the conditions?
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's that, you're just losing sense of everything else but the thing in front of you. It's really cool.
But
Like, it feels good.
But if you're doing work that you're good at, but maybe it's the 46th time that you've designed
Right.
a mobile interface.
Yeah. Right.
Can you get in flow state with that?
Yeah.
Or
I think
is it a level
so.
of flow state that's below total and complete zen flow state? I mean, are there
Yeah.
levels to this?
I think so. I think there are. Definitely. It's kind of like what am I thinking about? Like meditation almost. You know what I mean? Like you've done stuff before, like you're cutting the grass, and then you just like kind of lose track of time, and you're like, whoa, I'm sunburnt and it's 4:00. I've been out here for like 6 hours.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's
What is
that
that?
type. There's that type.
Okay.
Then there's the type where you're just like, like you're designing something or writing something. You're just writing and it's just coming out and boom. Then there you go. 3 hours later, you're like, whoa, I'm done. This is actually pretty good. There's that too, I think.
I wonder, I don't know if I would call getting lost in a podcast while mowing the lawn, for example, flow state.
Okay.
I wonder if that's not something else.
It's like distraction.
Or just releasing your mind.
Could be.
You're right. You're doing a task that is
Yeah.
fairly mundane, pretty rudimentary enough to where your muscle memory takes over and you just do it.
Could be.
I think those kinds of experiences are important. 100%. I mean, for me, that's almost like, it is almost like meditation, right? Your brain isn't crowded with 1,000 things. Maybe it is some level of passive flow state, but the one that you mentioned, right? This like being in that zone where that feels very active to me. If maybe you fall into it, maybe you can intentionally create the environment, but it feels very active to me.
Yeah. Okay.
And maybe it's just my personal take. I'm looking at that task of mowing the lawn as not something that I would ever want to get into flow state on. But even with that, there's mastery and skill levels and mastery and how to do it well. So maybe you're right.
I don't know.
We're going to be team and decided today in the podcast studio.
Well, I found this cool article on Medium, Key Characteristics of Flow State, and they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things to kind of parse. One is intense focus. It was like what makes up flow state, right? So one is intense focus, loss of self-awareness, effortless action, timelessness, and intrinsic motivation. So, I mean, we go through each one of those, like intense focus, like clearly in order to be what we'd say in the zone, I mean, you have to be focused.
Yeah. I mean,
deep
work doesn't happen when you're not spending enough time to get into the project.
Right. You can't be doing 5 different things. You can't be multitasking. I don't think flow state can be found in multitasking.
Yeah.
One, I don't think humans can actually multitask. I mean, I know several people that claim that they can, but I don't think you can. I don't think you can do multiple things at one time.
So I have a funny story about intense focus. Anyway, it's a little like aside. We have this new book club at SoCo in the community that some members started up. And really it's, we were like, oh, we're going to help ourselves out. We're going to educate ourselves and read and grow. And it has ended up just being like, we're going to read books that have nothing to do with work so we can actually have some fun.
Oh, that's cool.
And the book last month was Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. He's the author of The Martian.
Oh yeah.
He just released it.
Huh.
I'm like always 2 weeks behind the book club.
Well.
So I'm reading this book and I won't spoil any of it, but essentially really smart scientist guy who sciences his way through everything, very similar to The Martian, ends up floating in a ship in space and encounters an alien and they form a bond. It's an alien that is just completely incompatible with Earth's atmosphere. I mean, just no chance in hell they could ever interact. And they're both impressed with each other's like technological advances and not. And I think the protagonist in the story is very ADHD, very smart, but very ADHD, right? Very distracted all over the place, but can also like go do deep work. And he talks about in the book this idea that it's really hard to do more than one thing at the same time.
Yeah.
And then here comes this alien who essentially is just designed completely differently and is able to like do complex like orbital insertion calculations, plus build things, plus do 2 other things at the same time, all of them with incredible levels of mastery.
Huh.
And I mean, the creature is like custom built for multitasking. It has 5 arms.
Interesting.
So some really cool shit.
Huh.
The book is really good, by the way. Andy Weir, the Project Hail Mary. If you haven't read it, check it out. He's good. He's a super nerd, and the book is for super nerds. And
The Martian was pretty good.
I'm a super nerd.
The Martian was a pretty good book.
But anyway,
a good movie.
This idea that I know from experience, and again, a lot of my day, most of it,
right,
is bouncing in between
Yeah.
projects, tasks, meetings, clients, team members. It is distracted, and it is not deep.
What is that? There's a term for that. It's like phase shifting or like thought shifting or something like that. And there's like this theory that if you're doing one thing and you get interrupted and you deal with the other thing in order to get back to the thing you were doing before, it's like it takes like 10x the time to get back.
The literature on this
focused.
is almost locked down. I mean,
So
it is incredibly inefficient and unproductive. But you can get good at it. You can get good at multitasking.
Yeah. Well,
but you can't get good at doing anything that requires focus and deep work.
Right.
Through a multitasking approach.
Yeah, sure.
So that first one, intense focus, is 100% right.
I think you're onto something with the cutting the grass thing. Like you probably can do some multitasking if all the tasks are like, like I'm making coffee, I'm cleaning up some stuff somebody spilled, I'm loading the dishwasher, I'm like,
well, right.
rearranging. Like it's all sort of like not the same thing, but they're not like cognitive heavy things.
Right.
You probably can do that.
Yeah, right. Like it's a muscle memory. It's the cognitive load that's low.
But you can't write an email and clean up the kitchen at the same time.
Right. And yeah, exactly. And those are parts of your brain that are incompatible to be used at the same time. So yeah. So I mean, listen, so if we're talking about deep work and flow state and you want to get some of that, which you do, everyone needs some flow state. Everyone needs to have the ability to do deep work. The first thing is you have to recognize that it requires focus.
Yeah. So you got to create an environment that allows that. All right. So there were these 8 things.
Wait a minute. Do you want to talk about the other 4 things here?
Oh, sure. We can go through them. So that was intense focus, loss of self-awareness.
Okay.
Right. So
just help people understand what that means.
So like we're talking about characteristics of flow state or being in the zone. So loss of self-awareness. So you're intensely focused, but it's also where you're focused to the point where nothing else is in your in your sights, like just the thing you're doing. Right. So you forget to eat. You ever done that before? You ever been working on something and you're like, whoa,
100%.
I'm hungry.
100%.
It's midnight. Yeah. Like that would be a very key indicator that you have just achieved some of this.
Yeah.
I've done that. I do that all the time.
With what?
Just work, where I'll be working and then I'm like, it's 1 o'clock. I'm hungry, and like the hunger, like you're like, oh,
it hits you.
It wakes me out of that, like what I'm doing.
For me, I seem to have a lot of flow state late at night, which I don't really love.
You're just hungry at night.
No, I'm not connecting.
I'm kidding.
To flow state.
I'm kidding.
No, but I mean, like, the cat's in bed, Pascal's in bed, our son. I have a thing that I'm working on. It's quiet. A lot less distractions, right? I can focus.
No one's messaging you.
Right. I mean, the input, the sensory input is much lower. And I don't know. For me, also, like when I'm doing renovation, DIY, crafting kind of work is, that's a place where it actually is really good to get into flow state, because a lot of the stuff I'm doing, it's skills that I don't use every day. It requires focus. It requires enough time to like experiment and fail. And I find myself, looking at my watch and it's like 2 a.m. and I'm like, holy shit. But that feeling is really good.
Right.
And I guess that's what I probably wanted to say at the beginning before I actually drank coffee. It was, I fucking love flow state.
Yeah.
I love the feeling.
Yeah. It's pretty
of flow
strong.
state.
Yeah. It feels good.
Yeah. And then to look at what you get done in these
Yeah.
moments where you are in flow state.
Yeah.
It powers your week.
It's good work.
It powers your week. Like those are the moments where you can deliver at a high level some very interesting, very compelling stuff for whatever you're working on, right? Your own self, your client, your boss, whatever. But yeah, that loss of self-awareness is, I don't know. I wouldn't want to lose self-awareness every day like that.
Right.
But it's a cool feeling to be like, wow,
yeah,
where'd the time go?
Yeah. I'm kicking some ass here.
Yeah.
The other one was effortless action, which I think is a good mixture of that, what we said earlier about a balance of challenge and skill, right? So, you're employing this like effortless, like you're good at what you do, right? Or you're good at the thing you're doing. So you're able to sort of fall into it, and you're not like learning how to do it at the same time. That's not real. That's like, that takes focus, but I think it's a different type of focus. It's like my cognitive focus is on like learning where all the stuff is.
I mean, is this like iron sharpens iron kind of thing?
I think so.
Like you get good at sharpening knives, right? And you perfect the technique.
I think so.
The craft of sharpening a knife to the point where it's just an absolute work of art.
Yeah. That
finished product. Yeah. But you can't really start. You can't create a masterpiece if this is the first time you sharpen knives.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think so.
So is flow state that time when you should focus on the things that you're good at?
I think so.
And then you should focus on moving that craft forward a little bit.
Yeah, I think so.
You think that's the purpose of it?
I do. I really do.
Like the singular might be too strong a word, but too intentional. But
it's like a performance, It's like if you're performing something, if you're performing a dance that you do, or a song or whatever, like you've practiced it enough, you can go perform it. You know what I mean? Like an athletic event too. Like your hit guy's in the zone, he's scoring 3 or 4 goals. Like. Yeah, it's because he's practiced a lot and he's focused on it. There he goes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's kind of part of it.
I think that's, for me, that might be the most important so far takeaway. This idea of figure out how to get into flow state and apply some of the, your skill sets, in areas that are interesting to you, and work not on completing the task, but on moving your craft forward.
Yeah. It goes beyond just getting done.
But it also feels better to say it that way. Like, to think about it.
Like I'm doing something.
But I mean, like, instead of being like, oh, I have to finish this thing by this deadline. That feels like a thing I have to get done.
It's an assignment. Yeah.
Right. A task versus I am in a state where I am practicing my craft.
Yeah.
I am focused. Right. Time is less relevant.
You're in the meta.
You should see his eyes. That's kind of scary.
That's what they say in video games. You're in the meta. It means you're playing the game, but like you're sort of like role playing, like the world of the game. Right. Like you're sort of above it, but into it. Yeah. In terms of your craft. I have a whole bunch of thoughts about craft lately that maybe is another podcast, but we can get into that.
I would actually like to hear them. I think folks would like to hear them too.
So the other one is timelessness. I'm not sure I really remember exactly that in a different light of like losing sense of time, but also potentially like the work that you're doing is sort of like timeless work. And I'll be specific about that in terms of thinking about like craft as well. Like I'm not just focused on using tools in the software of whatever I'm using. I'm aware of why I'm using the tools in the software. Does that even make sense? Like I'm not so concerned on the nuts and bolts as I am concerned with the actual like art of using the nuts and bolts.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like
yes.
It just goes beyond the mundane, like, A to B to C to D, I'm aware of this like symphony of the work that I'm doing. I'm aware of the craft. I think that's when I wrote that, I think that's what I meant.
I think it's both beautiful and I agree with it.
I mean, it's cool to be there,
It is.
And then the last one's intrinsic motivation. So there's,
this one's big. So like, listen up.
Yeah, I mean, some type of reason why you're doing the thing. You know what I mean? Like I was joking around earlier, like a deadline can be a good way to force you there, but like
But that's external.
it
That's not
is,
internal
it
to
is,
you.
but
And I think
like,
it can never be a self-sustaining as an internal intrinsic.
I mean, it has to be something you like doing. First of all, it has to be. I don't want to use the word fun because like, let's be real. Your job is not always fun, but like you enjoy the actual thing that you do.
Yeah.
It's real easy to get in that state when you enjoy those things. So whatever that motivation is, it could also be like, socially motivated. You could be doing something good for helping someone else and
Yeah.
really get into it.
I have been not in flow state recently in the evenings, and I have been binge watching. I don't know if you've seen it or if anybody else out there is watching it. Formula One Drive to Survive. It's on Netflix.
I've seen it. I haven't watched it. No.
It is absolutely addictive.
Really?
It is addictive.
Huh.
It is exactly what you think it would be.
Okay.
High stakes, glitzy, glamorous, Monaco,
Oh,
global
I
destinations.
see.
But it's just been a really interesting show to follow along. And I mean, these guys most of them are under 30.
Mm.
Some of them are not even in their 20s.
Oh, wow.
And they are Formula One drivers. All of them are exotic and international. But they're flying around these tracks
Yeah.
at more than 200 kilometers per hour.
Whew.
And
That's pretty fast, man.
Yeah, and you crash at that speed,
die.
bad things happen.
Yeah.
I mean, the cars are super safe now, but anyway,
I've seen the
my point is,
movies.
they talk a lot about flow state and getting in the zone on
Right.
the show.
For sure.
These guys are, there's 20 of them
Mm.
in every race. There's only 20 Formula One drivers in the world.
Hmm.
That's it. There's a bunch of other ones, but they're all B teamers.
Right.
They're in different leagues, different categories.
Sure.
But at the top of the top, there are 20, and these folks are intense.
It's a small group,
And it's interesting to see some of the more seasoned racers and some of the new racers and the difference between their routines, how they
Sure.
prepare for the race, what they're saying and focused on in the cars. All of the ones that perform at a high level are very focused. I think they are intentionally, through practice, getting into a state of flow. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, oh my God, you have to be. The ones that win every time are the ones that don't make the mistakes,
Right.
mostly.
Right.
And the ones that don't make the mistakes are the ones that seem to be incredibly focused and and present and in the moment. The ones that are crashing and stalling out and getting last place, they're externalizing. Oh, the tires are not ripping.
Right.
It's rainy. Blah 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 blah.
Right.
And they're distracted. So and again, and it's interesting. The ones that are like, well, blah 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 blah, and then they're the ones that are like, my goal is to win a world championship, and then they just stare at the camera. They are intense as fuck, but like that intrinsic motivation, there is something greater than the fangirls and the fanboys and the right. There's something inside of them that they have chosen to apply or to leverage to be where they are, to get into that seat, right, and to race around that track at the speed of light. It's really interesting to see. Ever since we did this the first time and plot and we're planning out what we want to talk about, I've just been seeing, observing humans and how they move in and out of this state of flow. And the thing, it's not on this list, but maybe it is. Maybe self-awareness is that Zen, or timelessness. Maybe it's that Zen, but it feels Zen.
But also, like, you're talking about Formula One racers, they are pairing a high level of skill and craft with who they are as people. Right. So maybe that's why it feels so good to you. Like, so it's like, it's coming together, and it's just my work and who I am and what I want to do. It's all together in this nice little bucket, and it feels good.
There's something to be said for that. I mean,
it feels great.
It feels great. How do we?
Like, I'm doing the thing I was put on this earth to do at a decent level.
Yeah.
Some say, sometimes high level, for someone that I care about doing it for. That's a recipe for success. Especially if you get paid for it. It's even cooler.
100%. Yeah, 100%. without a doubt, I think all those ingredients need to be in place for the result of that flow state.
Yeah.
To be very
so however
impactful for
you
your life.
get there,
So yeah, so I mean, let's talk about that. I want more of that in my life. I think folks listening would probably agree. More of that feeling and those outcomes would add meaning and value to their lives. So how the fuck?
Well, let's go through some of that.
State?
I don't know if these are as deep as that, but I like these. So in a effort to find, points of this topic flow state and like, maybe a checklist. I don't know how you want to make like a to-do list to get yourself there or whatever, but the same article was pretty good. So I pulled some stuff out of it. How to find and sustain it. And how many did we pull out? 8 of them. So we've got one that set clear goals, right? So I don't think you can finish something successfully until you know exactly what that thing is. You know what I mean? I mean, how many times have I know I have, you started off on the road to do something and it's just kind of like, well, I don't know how far I'm going to get. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. And you're just kind of like piddling with it. And it takes all damn day. Yeah. And you're like, well, I didn't really get anything done, and you leave and you go home. You're like, well, I didn't really get shit done today, but I sat there and worked all day long. I had no clear, like, I got to leave by 12, I got to get this thing. This is where it needs to be.
Yeah. I mean, for some things it's, I don't know. I mean, for some things I think you do want to wander and meander, but
sometimes, yeah.
But I think it is absolutely helpful to know what the finish line is for some of these things. So I'll tell you, with this one, I have been outside of my professional things. I have been developing. I won't even say honing, but I have been developing my woodworking. Skills. I want to. That's something I'm passionate about, turning into a craft. And so Catherine and I, we invest in real estate. We buy and fix up and rent or flip houses. We did our first vacation rental property up the mountains, which was a whole other hilarious journey. But I have been, for the last 6 or 7 years, taking on more and more challenges as it relates to working with wood, I guess is the best way to say it, as it relates to things around your house.
Well, everything from building furniture to building homes.
Right. So I've pretty much done it all now. But I've kind of gotten dialed into building and improving outdoor tables, farmhouse tables in particular. It's a style of table. And I remember the first one I did, it was absolute trash. It was so bad I didn't finish it. I had to just kick it over and start over.
It's part of the process.
And so the second iteration of that one, like, it got better. And then I've done a couple more, and then I did one for the cabin up in the mountains, and it was great. It was great because I knew exactly what I needed to do. I also had a plan. Like, we were using a concept, a plan from this Alaskan designer, Anna White, that we like. She makes all her own shit. She's like, it's hard to get good furniture in Alaska. We have no infrastructure. And so it was like it was like a copy kit, if you will, not of the materials, just of the design.
Sure.
And I got inspired, but it was great because I knew what I needed to get done. I had the time to do it too. I went up there for 4 days to do some other stuff, but my main project was crafting this incredible farmhouse table.
That's cool.
And I don't think I would have completed it had I not set the goal of saying, this is the weekend that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And this is the concept that I want to put out.
Yeah.
Does it take away some of the joy? Maybe.
Yeah.
But I mean, for me, most of the time, flow state is about getting something done.
Yeah. You've got to get it done. I mean, if it's not done, then, it's not really successful.
And you don't get the reward at the end of completing something.
You want to eat dinner on the thing.
Hell yeah. Exactly. So anyway.
So that ties into the second thing here, matching challenge and skill, matching challenge with skill, right? So engaging in activities that align with your skills while offering a moderate level of challenge. Too little challenge leads to boredom, while excessive challenge can cause anxiety and frustration. So it's got to be in that right. It's got to be in the zone, right? It's got to be right in line with your ability,
Yeah.
but push you a little bit, but
So,
not like, I don't know how to do this shit. Like, you
so,
can't get in
so
the
give
zone.
people some examples of this one. Like,
Well, like you're talking about the farmhouse table, right? Like the first time you built it, you couldn't. There's no way to get in the zone building it for the first time
no,
because you're like, what am I doing?
anxiety ridden,
Exactly.
riddled.
But like the third or fourth one, now you're like, I got my design, I got my shit ready. I'm gonna go knock this thing out.
Well,
You could probably do that.
And then there were,
You're like, leave me alone. I'm building a table.
yeah.
You know?
And I didn't have to because we'll get to one of those.
Yeah, you controlled your environment too.
Yeah, I did. But yeah, it was that thing. It was okay. So this is a table. I know
Yeah.
the concept. I know I know
Yep.
the specs for it. There are some elements of it that don't make sense to me.
Yeah, and you change them
that I'm gonna need to figure out.
That's right.
I've never done it before, right? They have like these wings that are floating out. They're not supported by legs underneath. It's like a wings on.
How do I do that?
Like, so it's a bunch of like stuff like that. What about for you? I mean,
there's a little skill, right?
Give us some more examples of like where you're there, you're in that skill zone that you need to be in, but you're pushing yourself just a little bit.
Well, I mean, we can talk about, web design. I mean, that's what I do, web development. Like there's a way that I build things. I've done them forever, for 10 years or whatever. But sometimes there's a thing we have to build for a client that I've never done before, but I'm using a tool set to achieve it, but it's a little bit different. Or maybe I'm using we're working in a completely different environment, but all the skills and, knowledge that I have still applies, right? So there's a elevated level of challenge, but not, it's not like, well, now I got to learn an entirely new programming language as well as build this thing. That's not going to work.
So essentially, if you're out there listening, think about the things that you do well.
Yeah.
But that you're not embarrassed by, right? That you can hold your own in in a street fight, or
exactly.
Or I'm a pretty good illustrator, or I've really gotten pretty decent at guitar, or whatever the thing is. Start there and start working on setting up some ways that you can hone that craft and introduce some challenges. It is so much like breaking the fibers in your muscles, right? That same iterative process of like failure and rebuilding and growth.
Yeah.
That's a really powerful one.
It's
really, really powerful one. Matching challenge with skill.
Yeah.
So think about
it goes into the self-awareness thing, right? I mean, or self-awareness in general. You have to be self-aware enough of your skill set, right? You have to like spend time on your craft and thinking about yourself to know when you're getting in over your head before you get in over your head.
Right.
We're all going to have situations where we get in over our head. That's just business in life. But if you're trying to control it and proactively get yourself in that state of being in the zone or whatever, you need to be aware of what your capabilities are
and your limitations. So
more importantly,
I'll give you guys another example. I really love rock climbing.
Well, that's a great.
It is like a thing that I wish I could do a lot more regularly.
Yeah.
Now, can I get into flow state when I'm on in a climbing gym or on a rock wall? No,
it's not the same
because I don't do it enough. I'm also 45. Right. And yes, while I can still climb like a monkey. I'm anxious every time I'm on that wall. Right. It's a different kind of challenge for me. It is not this is where I'm not Alex Honnold. This is not where I get into flow state on, free climbing El Cap.
Yeah.
Just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Does that mean I shouldn't do it? No. But if I'm looking to have more of that energy that comes out of a flow state experience, probably shouldn't be on the rock wall.
Probably not. It's a different thing.
Yeah, it is.
It's a different thing.
Yeah, it is.
The other one is minimize distractions. Right. So you were talking about that when you went up to the mountains to work on your table. I mean, it's it's not trying, but controlling the environment as much as you can. Right. Like you're not gonna sit down and crank out a project and get in a flow state if you're also like answering emails.
You know, it's funny.
You have to turn that shit off.
Yeah, like y'all, just do it. Oh God, just do it. Like you will thank us later if just hearing the words "turn off your cell phone," racks your body with the guilt and anxiety. Then just try and experiment. Figure out Figure out what you're good at, what you like doing, creative writing, whatever it is, and then try to just for an hour on a weekend when no one needs to talk to you. And try to control that environment and get to a place where it is absolutely distraction free.
So
just try it for a little bit and see how you feel.
It's beautiful. That's why I come into the office here. I have to. If I've got work I have to do, I cannot do it at home.
Yeah.
I know that. Like, I'm that guy, you know, like I
think everyone's that.
I don't have the self-control enough to like be at home and not have all the shit on, like the TV on and the kitchen's downstairs and the dog's around. I can't do it.
So what do you do outside of physically locating yourself somewhere where, you know, the number of people bothering you goes down to just Greg?
Yeah.
What else do you do to create an environment where you feel like you're focused?
That,
which actually is the next one.
It is. They're kind of very similar.
Yeah.
One's like cutting things out and one is adding things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely I change environments. I have to change my environment. That's number one. The other thing I do, I don't really do any sort of like mindfulness practices and stuff. I don't like, you know, do box breathing before I do any work. Although I'm not going to poo-poo it. I mean, it might help. Maybe I should.
Yeah.
One of the things I do is I will listen to podcasts, but I don't actually pay attention to them.
Right.
It's sort of like white noise.
Right.
So I suppose white noise, but I've learned that music doesn't do it for me. Like, music actually distracts me.
Really?
Yeah. It kind of hypes me up or whatever. And I can't be like hyped up, you know, I just need to be like sort of just mellow and working. So certain podcasts, I can't listen to, because some podcasts are like, it's like, bro, like there's too much going on in that shit. Like, you know, like comedians and stuff like that. I can't, you know, but like really long ones that aren't really talking about much, you know, like I can listen to those. I used to in college. I don't know if we talked about that last time or not, or if it was someone else. In college, I used to play the Star Wars movies. I would.
Once or
no, we had
all the time.
All the time. We had a VHS player and a TV in the studio. I'd go in the studio and we'd put in Star Wars and then Empire and then Return of the Jedi, one after the other. I can pretty much quote those movies from start to finish. But it was just something about the pace and the sounds and like knowing what was coming and stuff that just I was just able to work through all three movies.
It was calming. It was
I don't know. So I burned through like two VHS tapes of those things. Which is pretty weird.
I love that.
Pretty weird. But I know a lot of people do that. I know a lot of people will play certain movies and things.
I don't do it for flow state. I should probably do it as well.
Mm.
See, y'all, we're along on this learning journey with y'all out there. I definitely play background music. I have found that I really enjoy chanting monks and sounds from.
I heard that one time I walked by
temples.
I
don't know what it is. I think it might be a harmony
Isn't
thing
it
or
like
a frequency thing.
Wasn't it like the Mongolian throat chanting or whatever you're listening to?
No, that is like that scares me.
It was like that first scene in Dune or whatever. You're like, what is happening?
No, so I'll tell you, like literally on my list right now is and it's kind of like on repeat. Every couple months I try a different one, but it's the Tibetan healing music, Zen meditation, stress relief, relaxing.
Tibetan healing.
Yeah,
I have to give it a try.
And it's, for me, it's just, again, when you work in a communal workspace or
you got to have
humans.
Yeah,
it's just, for me, it sort of drowns things out. It's my white noise.
Yeah.
But I have found it is also very, very helpful for me when I am doing deep work or creative work.
Interesting.
When I get anxious, I have begun to work on breath control, on box breathing.
Have you?
I have.
Is it working?
And I've been paying more attention to my heart rate.
I've done that. I do that all the time.
And, you know, and it's interesting, the things that spike up. So those two things have helped me cultivate my focus, or at least returning to a place where I'm comfortable.
That's cool.
I'm calm enough to focus. Yeah. The other thing that I have started to do, which is a little counterintuitive, but if I know there's something I have to get done today that is going to require some focus and some like getting in that flow state, I have a lot of trouble getting into that thing if there is any sort of issue that is sitting out there
Yeah.
that
I know.
that is in my mind. I
Yeah.
know I have to deal with, but I'm putting off. I try to clear the deck of those issues, whether it is a tough conversation with a colleague, or my wife, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like, I really want to work on this flow state stuff. I have to take care of this first.
Yeah.
Because I have found it's just really difficult.
Yeah.
When those things are.
Yeah.
So I think
hard.
the mindfulness approach, I think of a lot of people probably have 47 things going on in their heads right now. And I think that could be probably one of the smartest things we could all do.
I think so too.
Is figure out a way to put those things on a shelf through mindfulness and breathing. There's just no way to get it done well when 47 other things in your head. It just doesn't happen.
Or one big negative thing.
Right. Especially the negative stuff.
Yeah, it burns you up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done the box breathing. You're not going to believe this, but I'm a very impatient person.
I agree with the audience. I don't believe it.
No, I do. I hate waiting. I can't stand it. Red lights drive me crazy. Like I actually do box breathing in the car. Like if I hit like 3 red lights in a row, I have the potential to lose it. But I'm not talking about like yelling out of the car. I mean, like just sitting there and getting mad. You know, like feeling miserable. And I'm at least self-aware enough to know like it's really stupid. Why do I? Why am I doing this?
Flow state while whilst driving. That's something I've never thought about. How to get into flow state.
Hey, but it's something I do. Like if I'm waiting on like someone to call me, or waiting, like the thing. One of the things,
or if you're late for a thing.
Oh yeah, God,
it's the worst.
But I think the thing I hate most is when I know I have a meeting that I have to be at in like an hour. I can't do anything before. It's like I can't work on anything because my brain is just focused on we're going to meet these people, and I have to just like sort of do that a little bit to get out of that like
that's interesting
anxiousness of waiting. Yeah,
it's interesting. I didn't know that.
I am, and I do those practices, and it gets me out of it. Just like you said, calm the heart rate, and just kind of like, all right, what's wrong with you? It brings me back to like, this is stupid.
Well, I mean, so let's say flow state is meetings for you. God help you.
But it's not the meeting. Like I don't care. Once I get in there, I'm like, fine. It's just the
waiting.
Or maybe it's the waste of I feel like I've got time that I'm wasting until that meeting. You know what I mean? Because it's like, well, it's not enough time to get a bunch of shit done.
Yeah.
And I don't have a bunch of tiny things to do. So I'm just gonna like wait. It drives me nuts.
For me, I like to ease into those things as well. I mean, I like to like jump from one thing to the next thing immediately.
Yeah.
That's the way my brain works. But
I mean,
when it's
probably
important
something to
though, I take a pause,
right?
I set the conditions for that meeting to be successful. I prep, I plan.
That's cool.
You've seen it from me, right? I'll update a calendar, invite 20 minutes before with some like agenda items, which I know sounds super nerdy, but for me, it helps visualizing the result that we want to get out of that thing, especially if it's a pitch or whatever. So,
well, that's the thing about a meeting. A successful meeting is when there's a set like outcome that we want.
Right. Hey, there you go.
If I go into
meetings,
if I go into a meeting and there's no set outcome, what are we doing? We're just hanging out. So let's go hang out, or let's have a meeting.
Incredibly disrespectful.
Yeah, it is to be like, hey guys, let's just.
All right, y'all, we're doing it. We're gonna do it, Gene. I've decided. I hope you'll come along for that. We're gonna do a
how to run a good meeting,
how to make meetings not suck.
I would like to listen to that.
We're gonna do it.
Okay,
we're gonna do it. We're gonna bring some people in because
that's good.
I've been thinking about this one a lot, actually. Funny enough.
So the other one is embrace flow triggers, which we're kind of talking about a little bit. But you were talking about Alex Honnold, and I listened to enough. I'm kind of a fan of the guy. I listened to enough podcasts and stuff that you're talking about him climbing El Cap. He did several focus climbs right before that on the same day. Just kind of like,
which for the record, just
getting in the zone,
ridiculous and blows your fucking mind.
Yeah. He's about to do the hardest climb he's ever done. So he does a few like shorter sprint climbs just to kind of like get himself worked up. I have a friend who's it's a pretty famous illustrator. I mean, if you've seen anything like Star Wars or Marvel, you've seen his work. And he before he sits down to do like a really, I mean, I'm going to say important. I mean, if you're illustrating Darth Vader's face for a Star Wars movie, it's pretty important work. So before he's doing that piece, he'll do 2 or 3 like sketches that he calls in the computer to sort of like get it flowing, and then he'll shift over and do the actual assignment.
Sort of like warming up with the performance.
But we don't think about that. We think about like, Oh, we're going to work out, so we warm up. I'm going to play pickleball. So everybody I know that plays pickleball don't warm up. You should warm up
Those
if you play
motherfuckers
pickleball.
don't warm up.
But before you go run a 5K,
Fucking pickleball.
you should stretch and warm up. I mean, we do that in those things, but we don't think about it in our professional life. If we have a sit down white collar,
like as
design job
as it
or
relates
something.
to activating your brain, your creative talent. That's interesting. So what are some other ways that you can sort of get, integrate more flow triggers into your day?
Well, if you think about little ritualistic things, right? Think about little things like that. So, baseball is really famous for, they step up to the plate. They do their little tap their feet, and I don't know what the hell they do in baseball, but they do things. I've seen them.
There are things, yes.
They do these little rituals. I mean, it's almost like praying or whatever, little ritualistic things that you can sort of do to bring you into the moment. I think are helpful.
So
maybe it's box breathing. I don't know.
Yeah. Develop some rituals. I don't know about you guys, but I mean, in my relationship with my wife, who is stunningly gorgeous and incredibly talented, but can be a pain in the ass just like me. We have certain triggers that aren't so good, right? They're the opposite kinds of triggers.
Mm-hmm.
They are triggers that will,
right?
Sure. A word or a statement or whatever that triggers a defense mechanism. So think about that in your life when you get triggered, but look at that word. It is a two-way door, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about negative triggers. There are things that you can do to let your brain know that it is time to get into a certain mode.
Mm-hmm.
They talk a lot about sleep triggers. So think about those focus and those flow triggers.
That's a good example.
Right. Because this is the thing. All this stuff is very heady until you see it in your daily life.
Right.
The things that trigger you.
Right.
So what's a sleep trigger for our family? Well, we get ready for bed, and then I read with my son every single night.
That's cool. It's a good ritual.
He is an emerging reader, so he needs to be hearing me read and practicing reading himself.
Yeah.
And second, it is part of our ritual that prepares his mind for sleep.
Yeah. Develop some professional rituals.
I think it's a really powerful one.
The other, embrace failure as feedback. I think that's important too. Because I know sometimes I've been building things and I get pretty far and I'm like, it didn't work. And I just throw it away and start over, But if I'm in the zone, I don't it's not like a failure, It's just all right, well, I followed that path and it didn't get me where I need to go. So I'm just going to delete that path and I'm going to start another one.
But also, isn't that, I mean, you need that mindset anyway. If you are honing your craft.
I think so.
It is all about iterative failures, right? It's about, okay, I'm good at this. I'm pretty good at sharpening this knife this way. I'm going to try a new technique. It might not work. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah. That's how you build your skill set.
Fuck, I ruined the knife.
Yeah. So it's just whatever. I can keep sharpening it. I mean,
feedback loop, try stuff.
But I know so many people that is a huge problem, is that they start working and they want it to be right. Yeah. And they don't want to waste that time, or they think about it being wasted. They just, it's got to be right. And if it doesn't go their way, they melt down.
But I feel like that.
I've worked with people like that.
Yeah.
Over the years. It's like, bro, it's okay, man. You can just come in tomorrow and pick it back up. It's cool. We built enough time in the project. It's all right.
Yeah. No, that's a good one.
Just cut it all out and start over.
But in general, I mean, failure can be some of those important feedback that you get. And if you're avoiding failure by not you're probably not pushing yourself. So
being too conservative,
of this
maybe.
Flow state mindset is I am here to experiment, to try new things, to grow. Okay, we got one more, right?
Two more.
We've
kind of been talking about the last one all along. But engage in challenging activities regularly. I think that's helpful for you to be applying the same lessons and things to your professional job or whatever it is that you're trying to get into flow state in. And that means that if you're not regularly sort of pushing the envelope in other areas of your life, right? Then we were just talking about whenever you're sitting down to do the job that you're going to do, you might be a little too conservative.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we're pushing that skill set. You have to sort of push the envelope a little bit. You know, you don't want to like totally warp it where you're doing something that you don't know how to do. I mean, you're going to have to do that in your life, but we're talking about flow state. But you've got to practice sort of pushing the envelope in other areas of your life to then learn those lessons over here.
I mean, this is good stuff. I mean, this is essentially, we're talking about this idea of like 1% every day.
I think so.
Right? Or maybe,
yeah.
maybe not so intense, but or intentional, but just in all facets of your life. Okay.
It could be that, or it could be like instead of 1% every day, it could be like 1% every day, except last Thursday, it was 90%, you know, like whatever it is that like kind of expands that universe for you.
But don't get settled. Don't get set.
Yeah. Ways to not be so conservative in just the because we're, you know, you're in flow state on your job. You're not changing the world. You're just doing the project, you know, or whatever it is. It's like,
I mean, for some people,
it could be. I'm not trying to poo-poo on people. And the last one was practice mindful presence.
Poo-poo on people.
Practicing mindful presence. I think we're talking about that the whole time.
Like being in it.
It's if you're focusing on these 7 things, if you're aware of it, you are being very mindful of your approach and outcomes and things like that.
That one, I do feel like we've been talking about this.
Yeah, but it's super important. It's probably why it's last, but it's super important. I mean, if you're not, you know, if you're not mindfully approaching, or at least like in the back of your mind recording your experience, you know.
Yeah. But there's also, I think what people struggle with mindfulness is they're like, I want to get mindfulness. It is a discipline. It is a practice. It is a craft in itself.
Yeah.
And it's something, as you go through this, you have to just say, I am working with intentionality on this thing. It's okay to fail. I am going to experiment. I am enjoying this work. You know, I am present for this. Right. And I just don't know any way you can be present for something when you're distracted. That for me is the most important.
And I think it ties into the whole being in the moment thing. Because like anxiety is usually created when you're either worrying too much about the past or you're too focused on the outcome, like worried about the future.
Yeah.
Like it's usually where anxiety comes from. I'm either doing one or the other. I'm either regretting some shit I did, or I'm like worried about regretting some stuff in the future.
Can I tell you something?
Sure.
So in the span of the hour we've been talking, I started hearing some, like, we're in the studio, but like it's inside of a workspace. I started hearing some people chattering. And then I started thinking about, you know, I have a thing at 10:30, blah, blah, blah. And then for the last 30 minutes, I really haven't looked at or thought about any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like
it's going to work out.
I'm not saying we did it. We weren't as intentional as maybe we could be, but we entered, I would say, some degree, right? Maybe not 100%, but some percentage of a flow state experience just now.
Well,
we got a little lost in the conversation, y'all. We went way over our time.
I mean,
I'm going to call it, Gene. We achieved flow state.
Podcast flow state. Oh God.
All right, y'all. Well, if you're, if you like what you heard, if you have questions, drop them. Let us know what's going on. Again, we were talking about flow state, key characteristics, right? Intense focus, loss of self-awareness, effortless action, timelessness, and intrinsic motivation are some of the key characteristics of people that are in flow state. And then if you're looking to get you some of that flow state, there are some things that you can do to create the conditions for that and set clear goals, match challenge with skill, minimize distractions, cultivate a deep focus, embrace flow triggers, embrace failure as feedback, do challenging activities regularly.
Yep.
And then what's number 8?
Practice mindful presence.
Be present for the things that you care about in your life.
Mindfulness. We ended with mindfulness.
We love you guys. Stay in school. Don't do drugs.
All right.
Peace out.